Okay, this is Brianne Pernick, and we are now going to finish Chapter 0, Lesson 3. I apologize, we got timed out again. We do only have 15 minutes on each of these screencasts that we're doing. I have started over on the last problem that we were working on. Let me just recap where we were here. We converted each of these to a improper fraction, and we were working on cross canceling. So we did multiply 15 times, or 3 times 5 to get 15, and added 1 to make the 16. For the second fraction, we did 2 times 2 to make 4, and add 1 to get the 5. And then the 7 is just a 7 because it's a whole number. So we are now going to work on cross canceling. So the only thing in this entire problem that will cross cancel is going to be the 16 and the 2. So we're going to work on dividing out a 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So now I am going to write my 7 as a fraction and make it 7 over 1. And now we can straight multiply straight across all of those numerators. So 8 times 5 is 40. 40 times 7 is 280. And then we're going to straight multiply our denominators. 3 times 1 is 3, times another 1 is still 3. So now we have 280 thirds. That is an improper fraction, and we do not want to leave it that way. So we need to convert that to a mixed number. So we're going to go ahead and set up a little division problem here. So we have 280 divided by 3. 3 will go into 28 9 times. That gives us 27. Bring down that 0. 3 will go into 10 3 times. And then we have a remainder of 1. If I can get it to right there. So that gives us 93. Put the 1 up there in the denominator, and 1/3. So converting that gives us 93 and 1/3. Now we're going to move on and talk quickly about division of fractions, whole numbers, and mixed numbers. Dividing of fractions actually uses multiplication. So we only have to add in one new step here. In order to divide fractions, we have to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. The reciprocal, by definition, is the inverse of the fraction. And what that means is that we're simply going to flip the numerator and the denominator around in their position. You're just going to flip that fraction. So for example, if we have the fraction 1/2, its reciprocal is 2/1. You just flip those fractions. So here are the steps to divide fractions. The first step is that you are going to keep the first fraction the same. We change the division symbol to multiplication. You take the reciprocal of the second fraction, and then we follow the steps of multiplication. So if you can multiply fractions, guess what? You can divide fractions. So let's practice following those steps. Step 1 says that we are going to keep the fraction the same. So we want 4/5. Let me get my eraser real quick. We want 4/5. I'm going to write that up there. We change the division symbol to multiplication, and then we take the reciprocal of the second fraction, so I'm going to write 10/9. And now I simply follow the steps for multiplication. So I'm going to check for any cross-canceling. The only thing that I can cross-cancel will be the 5 and the 10. I can factor out a 5. So 5 divided by 5 makes 1. 10 divided by 5 makes 2. Now I'm ready to straight multiply. 4 times 2 makes 8. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. And 1 times 9 makes 9. So my answer is 8/9. Next, we have 3/25. When we keep the first fraction the same, we change our division to multiplication, and then we take the reciprocal of the second fraction, which is 5/6. Check for any cross-canceling. When we look on our first diagonal, we'll see that we can cross-cancel by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 25 divided by 5 is 5. On the second diagonal, we have that we can take out a 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now we're ready to straight multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. 5 times 2 is 10. And there we are. We have 1/10. And then lastly, we have letter C. Keeping the first fraction the same, we're going to write it as 4/1. Change our division to multiplication and take the reciprocal of 6/7, which is 7/6. Check for cross-canceling. You should see that you can factor a 2 out of 4 and 6. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now you are ready to straight multiply. 2 times 7 is 14. 1 times 3 is 3. 14/3 is an improper fraction. We cannot leave it that way, so we'll set up a quick division problem. 3 will go into 14 4 times, and that will leave us with a remainder of 2. So that gives us 4 and 2/3. 4 and 2/3. I told you, if you can multiply, you can divide. Now, the next type of problem that we're going to take a look at are what's called complex fractions. A complex fraction means that you have a fraction within another fraction. So you'll see that your numerator is a fraction, and here our denominator is another fraction. So our fraction contains fractions. That is what is meant by a complex fraction. We can still work with complex fractions though. We keep the numerator the same because that's the first fraction. So we're going to write 5/9. The division turns to multiplication, and then we take the reciprocal of the denominator. The denominator was 2/3, so we want 3/2. We take the reciprocal. I'm going to put that up here so you can keep that in your notes. We want the reciprocal of that. Okay? Now you check for your cross multiplication, or excuse me, cross canceling. The only thing that will cross cancel is on this diagonal. 3 will become a 1, 9 will become a 3, and then you can straight multiply. 5 times 1 is 5, 3 times 2 is 6, and we have 5/6. Letter B is exactly the same. You keep your first fraction the same. In other words, the numerator, it stays the same. Division becomes multiplication, and we want the reciprocal of the second fraction. So we take 12/21 and turn it into 21/12. Check for cross canceling. We will be able to cross cancel on both diagonals. On this diagonal, we will be able to cancel out a 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3. Along the other diagonal, we will be able to cancel out by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now we're ready to straight multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. And we end up with 3/4. We have one more example to go in the division section, and this is an example that teaches us what to do when we encounter division with mixed numbers. Now, if you remember back to the multiplication of mixed numbers, I told you that you can't do it and that you have to convert to improper fractions. Now, being that in order to divide fractions, we have to multiply them, it should make sense that in order for us to divide mixed numbers, they have to first be converted to improper fractions. So that is our first step here as well. They cannot be divided until they are converted. So the first thing that we're going to do is convert these to improper fractions. Just remember that the first thing you do is multiply and then add. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 makes 7/3. And then we're going to leave it as a division problem for just a second, okay? And then we're going to multiply and then add. So we have 9 plus 2 is 11/3. Now that you have them converted, now you are ready to follow the steps that I've taught you. So we're going to keep our first fraction the same, change it to multiplication, and take the reciprocal of that second fraction. So now we want 3/11. We can cross cancel along the diagonal. 3 and 3 will both become 1. And then we can straight multiply. 7 times 1 is 7. 1 times 11 is 11. And we have 7/11. And this finishes Chapter 0, Section 3. If you have any questions about any of the concepts that we have discussed, please feel free to contact me. I'm always here to help you, and I would be more than happy to go over anything with you again. Thanks.